And at this time, I would like to call for nominations for Chairperson Pro Tem.
I nominate Heidi Murphy as Chairperson Pro Tem.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Lisa. So good evening. Welcome to Village Board, August 21st, 2023. It is 6:30, and we do have a quorum, and the agenda was properly posted?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 3, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 4, public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. I do have one wish to speak form in front of me from Cassandra Mordini. Cassandra, you want to come on up? We do have a new set of microphones. Yep.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Cassie Mordini. I've been a village resident for 8 years, meaning I've witnessed the accelerated growth of the village over the last few. We moved into our home before there was Culver's, before the new UW clinic was built, when there were only 2 stoplights in town, and I really felt like it was kind of a bedroom community. But as more and more businesses, homes, and apartments have continued to go up and grow our community, it's been exciting to think about how the opportunities and services in the village will also grow. It's exciting to think about not having to drive to other communities for dinner, shopping, entertainment, a place to meet, attend a program, or borrow a book. I sense that Cottage Grove is in a critical moment in its development, and we have an opportunity to make choices and investments to create a healthy, vibrant community. Telltale signs of vibrant communities are those that are designed people first, taking into account services that support the individual well-being and the local economy. They are connecting, engaging, enriching, and inspiring the people by providing places and services that stimulate healthy lifestyles, creativity, innovation, and broad economic development. Places like parks, senior centers, libraries, and more. You guys all know this. Sensing this moment, I've become more and more interested to learn about the plans for the village, and I've tried to become more involved in community events to understand the landscape, share my thoughts, and be part of that solution. I've been following the village board and committees where my interests align. However, recently I found myself a little confused and disappointed by the sudden reversal of priorities and seemingly sudden discovery of the village's not so rosy financial position. How does a resolution that states the public library, a #1 priority for the village, become an F-rated bottom of the list, not feasible project in a year's time? It has left me confused. I've lost that excitement, and quite frankly, I've lost a little bit of faith that the Cottage Grove can still become that vibrant community I once imagined. So as you discuss tonight's topic agenda, the capital prioritization process, I hope you reconsider how its current state doesn't really allow for that progressive future thinking of new services that can expand our community and provide that support to our community to help fulfill the well-being and channel our, I encourage you to open your minds to creative solutions, partnerships, and compromise to help realize the library. Can 2 road projects wait a couple extra years? Does a park shelter need to replace it in the next 10, or can it wait 12? Does a civic campus really enrich the daily lives of our residents? I'd like to think there's still a way to create that vibrant community, and I believe a library is an essential ingredient. And as you likely know, there are plenty of determined library supporters ready to work with you to uncover the partnerships, the funding, and think through possibilities so that the village can bear less of a financial burden than your plan estimates. But you have to be willing to have those conversations and think creatively, and I hope you will consider the library as a potential project if and when we find the right solution. As a favorite, Vince Lombardi once said, we could accomplish many more things if we did not think of them as impossible. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Cassie. Then you keep that. Do I have any other members from the public that wish to speak this evening? Don't see anyone in the room. Anyone else online? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to item 5, discuss and consider the minutes of the regular village board meeting on August 7th, 2023. Any comments, changes, or questions, or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion, do I have a second? I'll second. Any further comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Then we'll move to, we have a couple guests this evening for village consultants and service providers. Do I have any objections to moving item 7 ahead in the agenda?
No.
Okay. Then we'll move on to annual review of village consultants and service providers. First up is Colonial Club for Senior Services. Welcome you up to the podium or the table. The microphone has a little person button. It'll turn red and then it's live.
Thank you for the opportunity to, for us to come in and chat with you guys this evening. I'm Melody Riedel. I'm the Director of Services at the Colonial Club in Sun Prairie, and I've been with the Colonial Club this is my 30th year that I have been with them. So hopefully we can give you a nice overview of all of the services that we do provide to your community. And this is...
I'm Gail Brooks. I'm the Case Management Coordinator at the Colonial Club Senior Center, and I'm going on 28 years with a lot of service, a long-time service actually in the Cottage Grove area is one of my service areas.
So I thought I would just give you an overview of the different services that we do provide, and then offer you the opportunity to ask us any questions that I might have missed or you have a curiosity about. So. Our Adult Day Center is located at the Colonial Club. We service residents all across the northeast part of Dane County, including Cottage Grove, of course. And they come to us. We provide them with activities and personal care services throughout the day for them. We offer them lunch and engaging activities while their spouses or family members might have to work, or they might just need a break during the day. We're there for them to leave their significant other, their family in a safe place, safe environment, and offer them the opportunity to do what they need to do throughout the day. So that's our Adult Day Center. Our supportive home care program goes out into the community. We have staff members that go into the homes of your residents and provide personal cares, home chore services, meal prep, bathing services. We'll run errands for them if they need to go to the grocery store, need to pick up medications. That's the type of things that they're doing while they're in the home. That is a fee-for-service program, as is the Adult Day Center. Case management, I'll give an overview and then Gail has a couple of specifics that she'd like to share. Case management is a free service that is offered to the community. They can call us and ask us questions. We're a resource for them. We provide resources back to them. And a whole bunch more. If they're becoming homeless, we're working side by side with them, trying to figure out what the next step for them might be. If they need money for medications, the case managers are trying to figure out how the best way to make that happen for them. And much more. They are the #1 contact for the Medicare Part D, and going through that plan with them coming right up here in October, is it?
October 15th, but we
Yeah.
start way before then.
Yeah, so they're gonna get super busy with that. And yeah, you have other things to add, Gail?
I'll try to add to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the role as a case manager then, again, is, we get our referrals from family members. We're getting a lot of referrals from families that are across the United States. We work closely with the local police department, Dane County Sheriff's Department, Adult Protective Services, the discharge planners from hospitals and rehab facilities, And then, you know, although they're not quite as many, we are getting an increased number from folks themselves, the individual themselves seeking more information. The goal of the program really is to provide, hope that we can provide service that they can remain in their home as long as possible, as independent and safe as possible. And so we are now back into doing home visits. That was all halted during the pandemic. Kind of on a side note with that too, the Adult Day Center, that was something that we were able to put a solid plan in place, and so that continued on even during the pandemic. So it was an awesome thing for the participants and their primary caregivers and stuff. And so we're back to doing home visits. We do assessments to see what kind of needs that they have. You know, the kind of trends that we're seeing right now, so during the pandemic, we were super busy, don't get me wrong, but it seems like that time period has had a negative impact for our older adults. So we're seeing much more fragility happening physically, even emotionally, and stuff. And so the level of the cases or the clients that we have are much more complex and coming in, let me tell you, fast and furious. Yeah, so I'm just trying to think of some of the other things that we do. One of the big things, again, learning about the services that are in the home that can be available to support them in the home. So, you know, we will do that, and then let them know about like long-term care program options, those types of things. For the most part, we're not about just saying, here you go, here's your information, off you go. We're not like that. We come alongside. We do long-term case management for the most part, but we really do come alongside the client, the family, the other significant others, to provide them with the support and information as well. Walk them through, because there's a lot of services available in Dane County, but it also can be very complex. And so that's one of the things that we help out a lot, is just, again, helping them to get through the process, hopefully get those services in place. As a group for case management, we have required monthly trainings that is vital to actually meeting the needs for the folks that we're serving. Because there is stuff that is constantly changing. There may be new grants available to help support and pay for some of those services in the home. You know, those types of things, particularly, again, pandemic, wow. I mean, information was flying back and forth. It still is happening because now there's the unwinding of things, and so we're working more with folks that are slowly starting to lose some of those benefits that were guaranteed during the pandemic. You know, that's kind of the type of thing that we're helping out with. We have folks that are, again, most of them are on fixed incomes. And so, as all of us know, cost of living, a lot of things have gone up. And so we're helping a lot of folks with assessing for certain benefits that can help to, like an example, that can help to offset some of their other expenses they may have, like energy assistance, the food share program. There's a program that if they qualify, the state of Wisconsin will pay that Medicare B premium, which it's $164.90 a month. That's a lot more, that's very helpful for them. So we're doing a lot of benefit assessments, getting programs in place that way for folks. You're gonna get into the home delivered meals, right? Yeah, another one that the case managers are very much involved with, though, are the home delivered meals. It's, people don't get the home delivered meals based on, gee, I'd like to have the home delivered meals out of convenience. We have to, as case manager, we have to assess that. There's an in-depth assessment form to qualify for them, but then we also use that as a way of trying to find out more, really what's really going on, and if there's other services and things that they might not be familiar with, and we want to give them that information so they can try to make some informed decisions. Trying to think, so, you know, the other types, the open enrollment is coming up, and that's on top of our regular caseload, so it really does get crazy, but we work with a lot of folks here. in Cottage Grove, I have, again, we've had a long-term relationship with Cottage Grove, and so there's still a lot of folks that, probably even after 10 years, that I'm still doing their open enrollment stuff because it's an important piece for people to be looking at, so they can make sure they've got the best health care and medication coverage. Again, housing for our older adults has become a huge issue. And okay, and we do have, we are working with hoarding situations as well, and sometimes there's different funding that's available to help with that. Trying to think, I kind of bounced around a little bit here. I guess one of the things I did want to share, as far as if you want to make a referral to case management, you do call the Colonial Club main phone number and ask for our intake specialist, right? Our intake specialist, and that person then is going to take all of the basic information for us, and then it gets filtered to me, and then I then prioritize based on the urgency of the situation and stuff. We are, as I shared earlier, we are getting referrals fast and furious, and it's not slowing down. So, we are at like about 2 weeks. Obviously if it's a crisis situation, we change that whole thing around. But average right now, we're about 2 weeks out on connecting with the new referrals that we get. Trying to think. I guess that's basically about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good overview of case management from Gail. The next program that I'd like to talk to you about would be our nutrition program. Our nutrition program consists of 2 main categories. The first one is our congregate meal site. Our congregate meal site welcomes residents to come in and have lunch with us. We only serve lunch. They are welcome to come in. They need to make an appointment or make a reservation would be a better word to use for lunch, and a day ahead of time, and they can come in and have lunch with us. The other option is a home-delivered meal, as Gail had mentioned earlier. That assessment is like 12 or 13 pages long that we have to do with each and every single meal participant that we deliver a meal to. So it takes a little bit. They're not always comfortable in sharing the information with us, but it is something that needs to happen in order for them to qualify for the home-delivered meal program. But we serve 200 meals a day. That's going to all of Northeast Dane County. We are also the caterer for the DeForest Senior Center, so we provide their meals for their home-delivered meal people and their congregate site as well. The nutrition program provides 1/3 of the daily nutritional intake that an older adult is to receive. So all of the menus, and I believe you got the couriers given out to you, our menus are in there. All the meals are approved by a nutritionist that is a registered dietitian. So she goes through all of our menu items with us, and then we make them each day for our folks. That runs Monday through Friday. Like I said, it is a noon meal, and I can tell you the registered dietitian doesn't like corn. I always try to get corn on the menu, and she never likes it. Like, fine. So it's a battle, but a fun one. So that's our nutrition program. And our activities, before I get to the activities, along with our nutrition program and our adult day center, we have a transportation service that we do provide as well. That transportation service would come, pick people up, bring them in for lunch, and then they can participate in any activity that they would like to do during the day. A lot of times we're picking them up for lunch and then they're staying for bingo, and then we're taking them back home after bingo is done. Some play cards, some want to do a art project or an art group that's happening. We have speakers, so it really is a wide variety of what we do. As long as they have lunch, we can provide that ride for them on a donation basis. Mm-hmm. The activity portion, which is the other part of the Colonial Club, services and activities. The activity side is that courier that you all have in front of you. That's what we do during the day on a monthly basis. A wide variety of different things. We have classes, we have jewelry making, we have speakers that come in and talk about health and nutrition. We have entertainers that come in on a monthly basis and entertain our folks that want to come and have some fun during the day. That's slowly coming back. That's been a struggle to get people to come in for those programs. I think some of them were still frightened, not wanting to come out of their house and not staying isolated. So that's been a slow process to get them back in into the senior center to partake in that. As is our nutrition program, they still want to sit at a table all by themselves. So the whole point of our nutrition program is to provide social opportunities for them to talk and engage with others, and that's they still like sitting at their own tables. So we're working on ways to push them together and pull them together and offer those non-isolating activities for them. But otherwise, the activities that are in the courier pretty much explains all the other stuff that we do at our facility. Nobody lives by us. Everybody goes home at nighttime. We lock the building up at about 4:15, and everyone goes home. So that is a big misconception for the Colonial Club, is that people will say, oh yeah, I live at the Colonial Club. No, they don't. They do, I swear to you, they do not live at the Colonial Club. We don't have any rooms, we don't have any apartments associated with us. However, the Colonial View is right next door to us, and those are the HUD subsidized apartment buildings that people often confuse with us. So, anything else you want to add, Gail? Any questions that any of you may have?
Before opening it up to board members, as a resident, if they were looking to get into contact with the Colonial Club or utilize your services, can you just briefly touch on how they would do that, or the best way to do that?
Was that the referral?
Sure, yeah. So the best way is just to call the number that's on that courier, our main contact number. Whoever answers the phone will direct them in the right place for whatever question and whatever service they may need.
Thank you.
And the other thing that I did want to mention too, Bob Power, our executive director, he will be providing financial information and service contact information to y'all coming up here, so.
Yeah.
Questions?
$60, that sounds like a pretty good deal for the year. How many members do you have?
Good question. I want to say that our Club 301 membership is around 200 right now. I think. I might be low, but something like that. So the Club 301, they do not need to be a member in order to partake in any of our services or activities. It's just another option for them to help fund the senior center that they love coming to. The Club 301 membership gets them discounts on some of our trips that we offer. We'll get them into some of our entertainment free. And yeah, so it's just another way of them to be able to support us.
Thanks so much for your overview today. I know it's overwhelming to navigate services and to have a place where our residents can go to help people navigate that, especially in the age of online technology. And if you
Yes.
can't navigate websites, you have a hard time finding services and connecting with them. So I appreciate
Welcome
that.
to our world.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for your presentation. Any further questions for Colonial Club? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you. All right, so then we'll move on to our next annual review from Associated Appraisal, Assessor Services 2022 and 2023. And I believe we have Nick online.
Yeah, good afternoon. Again, I'm Nick Laird with Associated Appraisal. I have worked with Associated Appraisal since 2008, and I believe I've been the primary assessor in the village of Cottage Grove since 2014, as well as heavily involved with the last revaluation conducted in 2022. Today, I'll go over 4 different topics with you guys. Today, I'll be discussing the required annual activity that the assessor office does throughout the year. I will be talking about the annual assessment summary. where we discuss assessed versus equalized, and then we will be going over the statement of equalized changes as well as the major class comparison. Believe you guys are able to see my screen.
Yes, we are.
Cottage Grove, Wisconsin, Dane County.
Yep.
All right. Here's our annual maintenance. Throughout the year, our office receives the building permits, and throughout the year, we'll go and visit the new construction, listing and physical, actually inspecting the new construction that was completed within the village. We visit properties that have been demolished and raised for new construction and new projects. We review the shifts in class. Shifts in class include potentially a farm field changing into a new residential neighborhood. So we'll see shifts in classifications of property. We will review classifications. So each year we're annually reviewing agricultural properties to make sure that they are fitting within their classification and are being used as they are stated they're being used. We process annexation. So if the village gains any township, surrounding township land, we review that, inspect the new legal descriptions and recorded plats. We enter the pad data. Pad data is provide assessment data. So annually, we will submit all of the sales to the Department of Revenue and provide the assessment data. We also included with that is reviewing the sales to determine if they are valid or invalid sales. And then we distribute the statements of personal property. So each business within the municipality does receive a statement of personal property and is required to return it to our office. I will note going forward in 2024, that will no longer be part of the assessor's role. They have decided to wipe away personal property and make the assessment process much more easier for local and small businesses. And then again, before the end of the year, we produce notices of changed assessments to all properties that have changed in the village. We'll add omitted property or property that may have been missed or was unknown about in the previous years. We'll correct errors on the assessment roll. We hold the open book, and open book is a very informal time period where property owners are able to come in, talk with myself or our assessor staff, and we can provide sale comparables, discuss the process, answer any general questions a property owner might have. And then we attend the board of review and sign the affidavit signing off on the actual assessment roll. And after the board of review is complete, we follow up with the MAR report, which is a municipal assessor's report, as well as we send out any agricultural land conversion reports to property owners. So if property was once tillable and changed to residential, commercial, exempt, manufacturing, they are required to pay a fee to the county for that land of class being in agricultural or not at market value. And then finally, we have the assessment roll, which is our main report and states all of the land values and improvement values throughout the village of Cottage Grove. On the following page, we have your annual assessment summary, or very similar to your municipal assessor's report. On the top, it will point out the total assessed value and total equalized value for the preceding 5 years. At the bottom is your net new construction. So you can see the net new construction each year. 2023 is significantly higher than 2022, and 22 is significantly higher than 2021. So there's lots of new construction coming into the village of Cottage Grove, which is great, added to the tax base. The next paragraph, we have your parcel count and number of acres by class. So in the residential class, we have 2,414 parcels, approximately 772 acres of residential class, and we have 190 parcels of commercial, which equates to about 562 acres. Going down the page, we have the real estate sales. So in 2021, we had approximately a total of 296 sales. And in 2022, we had 216 sales. In 2022, 157 of them were considered valid market sales and 59 were considered non-market sales. At the bottom, we have the assessment level and type. So in 2023, we had a normal maintenance year as well as 2022 and 2021. In 2020, we had the market interim update where we brought all values to market value. The following page is going to be the statement of changes to equalized value. And the reason I bring this up is because, again, the values were last updated in 2020, and we're all aware of what the real estate market has done over the previous years. I'm just going to point out the residential class here. We're seeing approximately 16% in economic change. So in just the year of 2022, they were suggesting 16% of economic change, and we had 3% of new construction. In 2021, we had approximately 6% of new construction and 3% of 6% of economic change and 3% of new construction in the residential class. I did not put up the 2021 value. However, in total, including the 2021 equalized value change, we did see a 24% change in residential class since the revaluation in 2020. So again, the Department of Revenue here is showing us that the real estate market has changed approximately 24% in economic change in the residential class and 28% in the commercial class over the last several years. And this final page is your Wisconsin Department major class comparison. So looking at the top, we have the residential class, total assessed value of $704 million, and the base value, what the Department of Revenue is anticipating the village to be worth as a whole. Excuse me, I was reading the residential, I'll read the total. So assessed total is 935 million. And the base value is $996 million total value. So the gap in between that is not on the current assessment roll, but would be captured in the next revaluation. I'm pointing this out because in 2022, you guys are currently in compliance. So revaluation is not needed at this time. However, the previous reports I just showed you showed approximately a 16% change over 1 year in 2023. And when a municipality falls 10% outside the equalized value, they become non-compliant. And that is anticipated for the Village of Cottage Grove in 2024. So again, we're anticipating the village to fall out of compliance. And once that happens, they have approximately 5 years to fall back into compliance. 2 options are available. They can do a revaluation, or the market changes and reverses and they fall back into compliance. Again, I was bringing these issues up just to touch on the real estate valuation changes that we've seen statewide. So we're all familiar with the real estate boom and how can my values be changing? How can we be assessed again? Well, as stated, once the municipality falls 10% outside of equalized value, they are non-compliant and are looking at a revaluation. So with that being said, I anticipate the village to be falling out and a revaluation to occur sometime in the future. I would be happy to answer any questions that the village board may have.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Questions for Associated Appraisal?
What's the difference between a valid and an invalid sale? Is invalid like a refinance or something?
A valid sale is going to be in the open arm market. Everyone has the opportunity to purchase it. It's listed with a broker. A willing seller and a willing buyer are able to make an offer on that home. A non-valid sale would be a home that maybe was a divorce sale or was not listed in the open market and was just word of mouth, or possibly a seller financed. So the seller financed the property as well, and that may not be an open arm's length sale.
I just want to remind board members, when you do a revaluation, that does not change the village's ability to increase taxes. Taxes are based off of net new construction. So a big common misconception when you get to the revaluation time is, oh, my assessed value went up by 20%, my taxes are going to go up 20%. So as we get further into those conversation, a big piece will be like, okay, if the average home went up 20% assessed value and they got a notice saying their assessed value went up 18%, in theory they could see a 2% decrease. And why it's important to keep that assessment ratio close or near 100 is it really provides a uniform to make sure everybody's being taxed at the appropriate rate and get people back into compliance, as Nick said.
That is correct. Typically, you see the mill rate decrease after a revaluation, and the main reason is we're adding all of that new value to the assessment of the base.
That was going to be my exact question to clarify, because I think that is a common misconception when people get a revaluation notice in the mail. So thank you for that extra info. Any other questions for Associated Appraisal? Okay. Thank you so much for all the information attending tonight.
Thank you.
Right, then we can move on to General Engineering Company, building inspections, and Jim, I believe you're online as well?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Everyone hear me okay?
Yep, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Trebian. I work with General Engineering Company, and we have been your building inspector since 2020. So what that means is we issue, review for building permits for both residential and commercial. Answer resident questions, occasionally maybe mediate disputes a little bit. It's a very minor role, and hopefully it stays that way. I see JJ has shared. That's a log of our building permits so far this year. I know that in the past we've shared, so to date, we've had 29 new single-family homes that have been permitted this current year, 2023. We have permitted 12 solar projects for residential and 1 commercial solar project. And then we currently, I believe, have 3 new commercial projects going in the ground or at various stages. So you're welcome to look through that. And I think things have gone well. Compared, we have some numbers here. If you look, our permits are currently at 256. And all of last year, we issued 266 permits. So we've had a very busy year, and I foresee that continuing to be the case as well. Any questions?
Questions for Jim? Thank you for telling, oh.
Not a question for Jim. One of the things that Jim and Sarah are working on is improving the online process. So they're trying it out on new homes, having them people submit things electronically, so they're easier and faster turnaround for Jim. And that's been working out really well. So I appreciate Jim and all their effort there.
Yeah, and I think that's a service that people will buy into as we go along. It's as a company, GEC has been introducing that to different communities. We have a few communities that's the only way they take building permits is through that online portal. I was a little skeptical at first being somewhat challenged with today's technology, but I'm learning to really like it, and I think people will as well. So we'll phase that in. And that's not to say that if we have somebody that just doesn't do computers or anything, that, you know, most certainly they can still be able to come into the office and drop a paper permit off. We want to be there for the residents and our customers everywhere.
I appreciate that flexibility, so that's great to have service both ways for our community. Thank you. And also, I requested a couple of years ago those solar totals, so thanks for keeping up with that. And I find it interesting to track over time, so thanks.
You know what it is? There's been some product shipping issues. I think that slowed down a little bit, and it's not just one company. It's been across the board for solar this year, and across not only Wisconsin but the United States. So it seems to be picking up again a little bit.
Okay, good. Any other questions on General Engineering Company?
Do you just want to take just a quick second to give a shout out to both Lisa and Sarah? I mean, they're constantly reconciling and dealing with permits, and they're extremely timely with our residents. So I really appreciate all their hard work on that. Again, working with Jim.
Great to hear. I've taken out a couple myself, and it was a smooth process, so thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim, for joining us tonight and for all of the information.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. All right. That's all of our annual reviews for this evening. We'll work through additional ones as we come into budget season. Is that kind of the schedule?
Yep. There's three in the next meeting. I think 2 the day after that, and then maybe 1 more. So
Okay.
more to come.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move back then to unfinished business, discuss and consider approving 2024 through 2033 capital prioritization plan to be submitted to Ellers for the 2024 financial management plan. There was a document attached, and that brings together all the survey work that all of us provided for Cameron, and some additional information about the projects that were in that list.
Yeah, so I'm excited to kick this off. Again, so this will be a little bit of a change from last year, trying to take the capital process to a little bit more of a formalized process prior to getting submitted to the FMP. So really, with this plan, we're taking a look at the next 10 years as established by the criteria, with the intention of maintaining the village's debt rating, as well as making sure that the annual year-over-year tax impact is being fiscally responsible to our residents. So in the plan, the cover, you'll see the Wheels Park. The Wheels Park was technically a 2021 or 2022 project, just finishing up, and for Saturday it was unveiled. For those who are in the audience, the next couple of pages are the approved criteria that the board passed in the previous few months. And then we get to, and I apologize, Jay, did you have the screen? Thank you. This is kind of the, I would say, most critical page, and really, I look at this page and the next page kind of together. And as I had mentioned with the 10-year plan here, this is really, we're looking out 2 to 3 years and having a crystal idea on what we're doing. And then anything after that is, we're trying to estimate the best economic factors that we know at the time. Again, a lot of this, a lot of estimates and other things go into projecting what the cost of these projects eventually will be. I do want to note line 21, that's currently just an estimate. There continues to be due diligence on that line item, as well as additional discussions on the financing being outside of GO debt and potentially taking advantage of a USDA grant program. So you'll see on this page, by board member, I summarized how each how the group of projects were rated, and in each category, A, B through F, and what the dollar amount total was for that was voted on. And so you'll see, excluding the municipal campus building, over the course of 10 years, just the major projects, it was $56,555,000 of projects, with the full understanding that the budget that we currently have does not support that full cost. So a couple things to keep in mind when you're looking at this. Currently, line 22 and line 23 are excluded in the current plan that you are provided. Now, that doesn't mean that if other projects are foregone, things can get swapped if need be, but the current plan does not have those two in the 10-year outlook. Any questions on just the grading, or maybe can we open up for discussion on any surprises here?
Questions, comments for Cameron?
Are we doing question, comments on? I guess I'll just wait till the end.
Okay. And I am I'll go through up until the major projects. We'll have a discussion, and then we'll just quickly go through the vehicle and maintenance items. So the next part of the packet you'll see has just some general description on what the kind of projects are. Each project, the descriptions were provided by the department heads. When the survey was sent out, there were broadly recommended years based off of timing of the project. It might work well where that's also a year that we were planning to do maintenance on a portion of the road and trying to get our best bang for our buck. So the most interesting page, or the one that I'd like the board to focus and have some discussion on, is the page that lists out the 10 years of planned activities. You'll see there's 23 capital projects that are listed here, with 22 and 23 currently going unfunded. I do want to make a note. I did talk with President Williams. He suggested, if it could work, switching 1 and 4 around, as well as just making sure that the fiscal impact of the projects don't create significant increases in the levy. So currently for 2024 and 2025, that's in 2024 doing Crawford Platte improvements, as well as some playground replacement and bike path. And I won't read every project, but at this point, I'd like to open the board up for discussion on either the year that projects are slated, or any additional questions, comments, or recommended revisions.
I have some questions, but I would open it up to board members then. First, I'll save mine in case they're double. Okay. I was wondering about some this is like worst case scenario, wouldn't include like grants, or if we used park development fund to fund anything. Is that kind of?
Correct.
Okay.
This is purely GO borrowing capital projects.
Would there be a point in time, or would that just come up in the next budget when we would know if there would be grant opportunity? Like, I think we talked about the North Lawn Pond conversion to wet pond. Like, that could be a potential grant opportunities, and a lot of safety, traffic safety, if you can prove that it's going to be better for pedestrians, especially with the new infrastructure law, there might be. And I know that takes a lot of coordinating with the MPO and applying for things, but planning ahead on those kinds of things might benefit us a little bit.
And this is the year we're kind of stuck a little bit because we don't have a map like this. Going forward, and this year, this is where we would unleash Strand and JJ and others to go and apply. I am always hesitant, any of these project costs showing it of net, because we kind of want to say, okay, worst case situation, this is what it would cost the village. And then, of course, if we use less debt capacity 1 year, that does allow us for additional flexibility going forward.
Yeah, we don't want to then have to axe a project because we planned to get a grant and then it didn't come through or something like that.
Exactly. Yep. And so really kind of from a procedural standpoint with the village board approving this plan tonight as it goes to Ellers to analyze in the FMP, they'll really take a look at the tax impact year over year of issuing this level of debt to get a picture of what that total impact would be. And then Strand and others will work together on, okay, well, what are the opportunities for funding these different projects?
Okay, thanks.
Great question.
I was thinking of another one a little bit ago, but maybe it'll come back to me. So I guess, Chris.
Okay, first of all, thank you for putting this all together. It's a lot of work. Second of all, I'm sorry if you have to repeat yourself because I was trying to listen and look and wrap my head around things, so I'm sorry if you have to repeat something. But I'm just curious, did you take the priorities and then, did you have like a certain amount of money that you would give to each year? And then
Yeah.
go through the priorities as far as what fits into where? Because obviously, like, I don't know how to, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm trying to say, I guess. But like, you can't fit all of the main priorities into 1 year. So how did you decide which goes in which year?
So it was a twofold process. So as part of the capital prioritization plan, we kind of took at any base year, we have $4 million for, street or major projects, $1 million to address vehicle and equipment, and $1 million for true road maintenance. That's not reconstruction, that's just an overlay, fix, sidewalk. So in each given year, we currently have $4 million slotted. Then on top of that, JJ and Brian worked really hard on, because their projects more closely aligned on, okay, what were the years we were planning on doing certain maintenance of roads, and can we lump that into maybe a major project or not to help save on mobilization? And then the combination of that as well as the board ratings is how we got to the final placing out in the certain years. The wet lawn, the conversion, number 10, the North Lawn Pond conversion to wet pond, that came up as being something that DNR wants to have us take steps forward in. And I think, JJ, you could probably speak more to that than I can.
Broadly speaking, and Josh, jump in anytime, we're taking part in adaptive management through Arrowinds, but on basically the western portion of the village, we should be taking steps to meet the stormwater requirements with projects like this. And this is essentially Strand's first thing they did for us when we brought them on was to find us our biggest bang for the buck, and that would have the most stormwater treatment capability, the conversion of that pond. So just over the coming decades, we should be doing projects like that when we're able to. Just not counting on adaptive management in perpetuity and leaving giant liability out there for future boards to deal with.
And some of that, it builds on timing, right? You see that in 25 as an expense, right, for the big construction of it, but it's like Heidi mentioned earlier, we got to plan and get the funding application in 24 to set up the 25. So some of these are timing driven, and even if you, like, let's say, looked at the municipal service building, it's not like you can build that tomorrow, right? It's going to take a couple years to plan before that could even be constructed and budgeted out further. So you kind of have to look at that with some of these larger projects that they take a couple years to get to that step of construction too.
Did you, because I know there was what the board averaged out to, and then there was what staff thought it would be. Was there a different grid for what staff thought each thing should be per year? Did you wait to do that until you got the board recommendation?
Yeah, so actually, to make it very clear, the survey was sent out without staff grading. Really, the rationale for adding the staff grading in the final project to show how critical something has to be to fall in Group A, where we would see 90% of priorities typically falling. I mean, there's not many things that you can say if they're not done within the next 5 years, you're gonna experience some major issues. So I included that grid here just to kind of show, based off of if JJ and I were doing the prioritization process, how we would have ended up grading the projects.
Okay, I guess my question would be, is there much of a difference between what you guys would have put for what projects go in what year and what the final product is?
I would say it's hard to answer that. I would say our grading didn't affect when the project would occur. We really relied on what the board ended up scoring. If it had to break like a tiebreaker, and I'm killing myself for not writing down the tiebreaker. That's where we defaulted to the board grading and that's why you'll see I did start initially with the board summary A, B, C, but then I added the plus and minuses to help differentiate the projects.
Cameron, with the village's increased tax base and therefore higher debt capacity going forward, do you foresee Ellers, our financial advisors, upgrading their recommendation at all on the average amount of GO debt year over year that the village could take on? Currently, they're recommending no more than 4 to 6 million per year on average. Do you see that going up?
And as we discussed, you know, I would say this is going to be an annual process, including the criteria or the guidelines. So if there's anything that didn't work this year or improvements we want to make, I would encourage as we go through the process next year that we get that cleaned up. With that being said, Nick mentioned, I think our equalized value grew something to the lines of 24% this year. It may impact on how much we can increase that 4 to 6 million, but again, I just as a reminder, there is a tax impact. So most people's personal budgets aren't growing at the rate that right now at least equalized value is increasing. So I would be wary of significantly increasing that dollar amount or them recommending it because of the tax impact.
I just want to go back in history a little bit for a moment because I recall we went through 2 budget cycles without approving an FMP. Is that, I'm remembering correct? Okay. And so this is, the recommendation came from Ellers as other communities use this to prioritize and rank. And so first time we're testing it out, but we obviously needed to figure out another route because it affects our bond rating if we don't have a...
Yeah, it affects a couple things. Right now, JJ strapped a little bit on what he could apply for certain grants for like trails and things, as well as when our bond advisors talk to us and they ask, okay, well, what's your plan, your 5 or 10 year plan on major purchases? You know, you can get away with a couple years saying, oh, it hasn't been approved yet, but like it happened this year again, we had a discussion with them and they asked, well, what are your plans for facilities to handle? Because they see the permits that we have, our population increase. So then that eventually becomes a negative driver as well.
Thanks. I guess some of my other comments in looking this over is, I did the tour of all of our facilities a couple years ago when we started the facilities plan, and looking at the municipal services building, there were a lot of priorities that we talked about in that, and there was a lot of discussion about programming space and how can we incorporate more spaces for the community to use in there. And so we don't have a definition of what exactly is included in the municipal service building project. That's still kind of a work in progress, something we're working on with FMP, right?
FGM.
FGM?
Yeah,
Okay,
and
thanks.
and even in-
FMP, that's the, yeah, sorry.
even internally,
Yeah.
we need to look at this, and those are big dollar amounts on there, and we have, the tax impact has to make sense.
Yeah.
And so, looking at it, this way, looking at it phasing, we're looking to get that cleaned up here in the next couple months and have it more defined. And that's why you will see it, I think, pushed out initially a little bit more. We just want to make sure we get this right.
And we used to just look at a 5-year plan, but now we're looking out farther because of our financial situation, because of our projections, or what do you think is the main driver of being able to look? I mean, it probably is fuzzy picture 10 years out if you look back 10 years ago,
Yeah.
what we
So,
were.
so capital is typically looked at anywhere between 10 and 20 years for general government and up to 30 years for utilities. And operating is typically done 5 years out, and that will be, again, shown in the FMP this year. And really, why, most importantly, to do that 5 and 10 year outlook is to make sure we're strategically adding things and placing it. And so again, I'm going to say it probably a million times, the tax impact is something that the community is willing to support.
But Heidi, I think the bond rating agencies require a minimum of 5 years.
Okay.
And for capital, like Cameron is mentioning, best practice is probably at least 10.
All right. Thanks. That's all the questions I had. Any other board members have questions?
This is Sarah. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, I'm not on video because I'm pretty sure I'll freeze. It's a bad internet connection, but I did just have a few quick comments, so hopefully I can, hopefully you'll be able to hear me say them. But I just wanted to thank you, thank the staff for putting the survey together. It was really hard to do. I don't know if anybody else, I mean, I don't know, Cameron, how long my timer was for being in that survey, but it felt like hours that I was trying to figure out how to score these things. And so, but I do thank you for giving the rubrics, and I think it helped just figure out where the priorities are. So I just wanted to say thank you to that. I think that this looks like you tried to take in our the grading or the priorities, how they rated. So thank you for that. And I guess, I don't know, I'd make a motion that we approve this to be sent to Ellers with the suggestions that President Williams had of, what was it, Cameron, moving 1 and 4 around?
Yep, moving project 1 and 4 around. And that would be moving the East Taylor and Westbridge Main Street intersection improvement with the county and Main Street reconstruction. JJ, any opposition to that?
Nope, not at all. I agree.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't intertwined with something else real quick.
So we have a motion from Sarah. Do we have a second? I would second that motion. Any further discussion on the topics, the motion as?
Yeah, I guess I would just say, for me, I guess I was kind of the opposite of Sarah. I did this pretty quickly, mostly because I don't really feel like it was a prioritization process so much as slotted into the, correct position. I mean, the criteria is, to me, is pretty objective. If asphalt is failing, it's failing. So it's going to be A or B. You're not going to put that as F. So I didn't feel like it really gave us as much freedom to really rank them. I wasn't sure I wanted to say anything because I don't have a better solution, and I don't like saying stuff without a better solution, but it didn't seem too much like a process that let us wander. I mean, there's a couple people that did on a couple things, but that they really only did that because they ignored what the criteria was for, which is, I mean, that's their prerogative, but I guess that's all I have to say about that.
No, and I really appreciate that feedback, Chris, and I think I want to make this and evolve as the board evolves, and I'd love to see all 7 of you back next year, but I understand life changes. So the big part about this prioritization process, it evolves with the board and keeps good representation. Where kind of how we got to maybe a little bit more of a rigid grading system is there's a fair, because of how quickly the village has grown and other things, there are a lot of infrastructure needs right now. And as you could see with our grading, hopefully, and then the improvement, hopefully we get those things taken care of, and that will allow those kind of other projects or again, recommendation. Yeah.
And just to add, I think it's rigid by design, unfortunately, just due to, even with the growth, as Cameron's mentioned, there's still, even if we have ability to borrow more, there's still the tax impact of that borrowing, and in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty objective because there really aren't options to have flexibility when you can on average only, borrow a handful million per year at best. So as Cameron mentioned in the beginning, there's most of that maximum is kind of spoken for going into every year. So there's not a lot of flexibility there. And for a specific project, potentially what's termed as like a legacy project as maybe was referenced at some point, being like for facilities that include PD, village hall, existing services, those kind of things. Those could only even be funded if you're able to get funding outside of GO debt. Otherwise, you couldn't even do that. So it's there's tough financial limitations, but to be clear, that doesn't mean our finances are not in a good spot. We're in a great spot financially. These are restrictions that the state puts on us, and in some ways that's good because we don't want people's personal property taxes to go through the roof. So anyway, that's why it's constructed the way it is, and that's why Ellers recommended to go in this route. So.
Other comments on?
Just real
discussion?
quick before the
Yep.
vote. The last couple of pages are, I think, a good indication. So this is just, if major projects aside, there's one deletion due to duplication on the list under Parks and Rec. The Houston Playground replacement. So that I did eliminate that from here. And then one minor update on the allocation of the ambulance cost for 2024. And then the last two pages, I think, or the last couple pages, I think, are a really great resource for our residents. It lists out between 2024 and 2033, based off of what we decided to put aside for road maintenance, and also has the PACER rating. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Really, that rating is one indication of how much is it going to cost to bring it up to being what's considered an excellent road, as well as kind of helps us internally prioritize. Now, I do want to keep in mind, these are ratings as of today. So as we get out to 2029 and 2030, you see some 5s and 4s out there still. So there is a real need to continue to make an investment to get caught up. It's not until 2032 that we're even addressing 7s, which I don't know, JJ, by that time, those are probably closer to 3 or 4s.
Not that bad. We do a good job in maintenance, but they won't be 7s anymore.
Right. And then there's John created a really nice map that shows where those roads are going to be taken care of. And again, this was primarily resident-driven, so if you wanted to help facilitate those conversations, this is what the plan is, and this is where the estimated areas would be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Further, go
Say
ahead, Chris.
one more thing. I just think it stinks that I think a library is a priority for a lot of people, and based on the criteria, I don't think it's ever going to get above an E, which I think is unfortunate. And I mean, that's not a reflection on any staff or anything, but just I think that's a bummer because it's a new service.
All right, other comments? All right, hearing none then, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. All right, we'll be back with Ellers then with this plan.
But budget review, September 11th. Village board, September 18th.
Okay, put it on the calendar. Thank you. Thanks for all the work on that. Then we'll move along to 7B. Thank you, Lisa. Discuss and consider resolution 2023-13, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to close real estate transaction. There is a resolution in our packet. Any comments on?
Yeah, I can just give like a
thanks, Rick.
quick overview, I guess. So this is basically just giving Matt the authority he needs to close out a real estate transaction. Just 'cause there's some things that come up that he may have to do, just to cross some T's, dot some I's. So this is just making sure that he's got all the formal approval he needs to get that done.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023-13 resolution authorizing administrator to execute property transaction.
Second.
Second.
Motion, second, third, almost at the vote. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Then we'll move right into reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. So we'll start out with Plan Commission. John's not here, obviously, so I'll cover Plan Commission. We met on Wednesday, August 9th, and we held a public hearing, which are the items we have in front of us this evening related to the public hearing, to provide input on a request from William Ryan Homes for approval of a zoning map amendment in the Shady Grove subdivision. So we do have a representative here from William Ryan Homes, and I don't, Aaron, if you wanted to give any intros to.
I guess just to kind of explain what the approvals are that we're looking at tonight. One is to rezone the entire frontage of Shady Grove to duplex. Ultimately, there will be a plat to divide those up into all the duplex parcels they need. That's a lengthier two-step process. William Ryan's looking to get some model homes started sooner than that, so that's why there's just the two CSMs to create some initial parcels to get that going, but you can only do 4 new lots with CSMs. They're kind of limited to how many they can do. But we do have Debbie Beaver here from William Ryan, and Mike, I don't know if you're joining the presentation or not. Okay.
And there's just the little person button there on the mic.
So can you see that now? No.
It's coming.
There you go.
Wrong one.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for taking the time to talk about Shady Grove. Just a reminder, William Ryan Homes is a national home builder, 32 years strong, building in Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, Dallas, Tampa, Fort Myers, and Phoenix. We've been building in Wisconsin since 1998. We are a builder of well-appointed single-family homes, and we are currently building single-family homes in Shady Grove. Just to make everyone familiar, Shady Grove is located at the corner of Bus and BB Cottage Grove Road. The portion that we're going to be talking about tonight is the portion up at the top in the yellow. The rest of the development has already been zoned and platted for 56 single-family homes, which we're currently building. In February of 2021, I came to the Plan Commission and to Village Board and presented product that was similar or complied with the comp plan. At the time, that would have been 30 attached townhome units for rent, and it would have been 42 units in an apartment building for a total of 72 units. This was the slides that I had presented at the time of the different types of product that we could foresee building there, depending on who we sold it to. At the time, we were looking to sell it to a third party. Since then, we have changed direction to do paired villas, is that we call them. It's zero lot line, single family attached homes, attached in pairs, so more commonly called duplexes, but I just want to state it's not multifamily housing. It's actually single family, zero lot line attached houses. We did it because it was far less dense than what we had proposed. The 72 units previously now is just 24 units. We wanted to be able to control our own destiny as far as being able to protect the values of our single-family homes that exist there. And we wanted them to be complementary to our single-family homes. A lot of the product we were getting from people who were going to purchase there just didn't even kind of coordinate with what we had going. We currently have kind of a historic Americana going there with, you know, colonial Georgians, Williamsburg, Craftsman, Cottage. So we wanted something that would look like it actually belonged there. So what we've come up with is 24 zero lot line paired villas, again, new construction homes, the same quality as our single family homes. We were asked by Plan Commission to show how those duplexes or the attached zero lot line homes would actually fit on the home sites, and so I've presented that here tonight. The buildings are 66 feet wide at the widest and 62 feet deep at the deepest. They have 8-foot side yard setbacks for each building for a total of 16 feet apart at their closest point. Then they fan out from there if the actual home site is not a rectangle. And since most of them are not rectangles, I thought I would kind of show you how they fit on the lots here. The single stories have the larger footprint and the smaller square footage. The 2 stories actually have the smaller footprint, but the larger square footage because it's stacked story on top of story. There was some concern for lot number 1, since Debbie from lot number 2 had showed at the Plan Commission hearing. I kind of wanted to show really how small this duplex is on lot number 1 once you put it there. It's a 34,000 square foot lot. She would have 24 plus feet between her property line and the edge of the duplex building, plus the 10 feet from the property line to her house. So she's roughly 30 feet from the duplex. And as you can see, there is, you know, the lot itself is almost 4 times bigger than what the building would be. For landscape, we were also asked to provide a landscape. We did have Snyder go out and survey the trees All the trees that you see on here along Bus Road in the right-of-way would all remain. None of those trees would disappear. Plus, we are planning on doing landscapes around the homes themselves with, you know, plantings and small bushes, et cetera. This rear yard does show the patio. One of the things it does not show is I'd like to put in a 6-foot-tall privacy fence in the center just as a screening between the two patios so people have some privacy in their backyard and don't feel like when they're grilling out that they're grilling with their neighbors. That's another shot of the rear and side of the building. And that's all I have for now. Any questions?
How long would that privacy fence be? 6 feet tall, how long?
We usually go 6 by 6, but I'm thinking maybe 2 sections, so maybe 6 by 12.
Other questions?
Actually, there was, I guess I didn't put it in here. There was the recommendation from Plan to have shared utilities agreement, and they're actually not required. We're gonna do one sewer lateral and one water lateral per unit, except the 4 units that are up in this upper section where the apartment building was supposed to go. It is gravity fed towards the bottom, and rather than trying to lateral underneath the parkway and the road, because the sewer is on the west side of that road, we're gonna do a private utility, I think, for the first 4 units. I don't think it's needed. Yeah, it was actually recommended by Strand to do it that way, is to put a private utility on lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then lateral under the road there, rather than creating 6 laterals underneath the parkway. But otherwise, everybody else will have their own individual utilities.
Right, splitting those up, right? Before there was less utilities that went to those individual lots, so just figuring out how they were gonna fit them all in. And it sounded like you have a good plan, Debbie, so moving forward.
Thanks, Mike.
This is Sarah. I have a quick question. Do you have a sense of what these will sell for, a range from the smaller to the larger?
We are still trying to do purchasing on them, but we're thinking, I would love to see them come in at the 350 range. It's hard pressed with inflation and labor cost increases and interest rates, but it's my goal.
Thank you.
What's your timeline for construction?
If you approve this tonight, I'm gonna be starting a model building in September.
You know, when you would hope to have them all finished?
You mean through the whole development?
Yeah.
24 is probably a year and a half worth of inventory.
Other questions, or we have I always get mixed up between plan and here. Do we go through staff, any staff comments and board? Or is that just kind of reserved for the action report?
You can go through it quickly. All 3 items were approved at the Plan Commission. Some of these have already been addressed since then, as Debbie kind of pointed out. As far as the rezoning, the Plan Commission just wanted the site and landscaping plans showing the building and the landscaping, which Deb's provided here. The CSMs, maybe I'll turn those over to Josh, because I think those conditions came from you guys to me.
I can't even recall them.
Oh, all right.
There were some minor CSM comments that I think we had on there, correct?
Yeah, so new water service for Lot 2, the maintenance agreements, which sounds like may not be needed.
So we wanted to make sure that each lot had, it's like when you have 2 buildings, they each have to have their own water service. And they could have shared a sanitary lateral, but on the couple lots that you're gonna do, you're gonna split them up because they're cutting in the new water services regardless. So that takes care of that issue.
Yeah, and then there were just some minor checking the numbers match up and that kind of thing on some of the CSMs. So we'd recommend approval. You can reference the village action report for the conditions.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request. Oh, sorry, is it okay that, can you
Yes,
hear
go
me?
ahead, Sarah. I was gonna
Okay.
start, but you're starting. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay, yep, great, I'll keep going. Make a motion that we approve the request from William Ryan Homes for the approval of the zoning map amendment to change lots 1 and 58 through 62 in the Shady Grove subdivision from rural holding to two-family residential. Let's stop there. With staff conditions and all the other conditions as indicated in the report.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. Further discussion here? I just had a comment which I relayed at Plan Commission that I think that this is, will be a good addition to our housing availability in the village. I think that home ownership is, and this more entry level is a great way to build wealth and have the opportunity for people to own homes in our community that might not have another way, and be able to stay in the same community as their kids if they're separated, or grandparents close to grandchildren. So I appreciate you bringing this product to our community.
Agreed, thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. So the next portion we have is dividing Lot 1 into 2 lots, CSM as mentioned earlier. Any questions on that? Otherwise, we look for a motion for that item as well.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request from William Ryan Homes for approval of the certified survey map to divide Lot 1 in the Shady Grove subdivision into 2 lots.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. And finally, then, doing the same to Lot 59 to split into the 1 lot into 2 lots. Any questions on that one, or a motion to consider?
Make a motion that we approve the request from William Ryan's Homes for approval of the certified survey map to divide Lot 59 in the Shady Grove subdivision into 2 lots and 1 outlot.
Second.
Motion and second on item C. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Thanks so much. So we continued conversation at Plan Commission, talking about the housing type mix in neighborhoods, kind of referencing 2001 Realty property, which is off Vilas Road across from Bakken Park, as an example, to give more flexibility in how we put in different types of housing, so single family versus multifamily, because we have currently different breakdowns. So kind of looking at how that would look in reality, and perhaps considering if we might want to change that. We had a decent discussion around that, and there'll be some additional discussion on that in the future as we kind of go through the housing study and see how we might want to update things in our comprehensive plan and ordinances to guide development, which is also related to lot coverage, which is the other item we talked about. We're kind of out of average in surrounding communities on how much of the property lot you can cover with a building. So kind of looking at if we want to change that. And that's all sort of part of the housing study, and looking at, if we fall in line with our neighbors, and how to make more flexibility to achieve our housing goals. I think, did I miss anything, Aaron?
Guess I would just add, the Plan Commission's kind of taken these zoning issues one by one from the housing study, but with the goal of eventually just putting them all in one amendment that we can bring through the approval process instead of doing a public hearing and an approval every month for each little one.
Yeah, but it breaks it down for us a little bit, so we don't have so much to talk about at each meeting. So we appreciate that. All right, any questions on Plan Commission? All right, then we'll move on to library boards. David's not here. I don't know, JJ, if you would like to report.
Yep. I guess most importantly to this body, given the discussion at last board meeting, was the discussion around the staff hours. Trustee Peterson kind of largely led the discussion at the library board and intimated that he thought perhaps the staff hours we were recording were inflated. I gently pushed back on that, saying if anything, I would say they may be underreported. And then based on that assessment, he essentially didn't think that we needed to have a motion at the library board level to ask for anything from the village board, given that the hours were significantly higher earlier in the year and through the FGM work, and then he was arguing are trending more towards the 5 hours a week. So there was no formal motion made to request anything from this body on that point. There was discussion around the budget memo, and you'll see that in the coming weeks and months. And then another big item was the subcommittees. And ultimately, they did decide to keep the facilities subcommittee and the community engagement and strategic planning subcommittee, but they did move to terminate the policy and the finance and budget subcommittee, saying that the library board could handle that work themselves. Discussion around the story walk, which will be also presented during budget discussions, and just authorizing Tracy to make smaller purchases without going through the library board president. But significant discussion was around the staff time. So yeah, any questions on anything on that?
I guess I'd just ask it, so were there any, so reducing subcommittees was kind of the main, and then the FGM study being completed is the main way that we were going to reduce staff time, or like that they thought staff time would be reduced?
I think, and I do hesitate to speak for them, but the impression I got was that the workload was heavy through the beginning and kicking it off, and then through FGM, and that the trend being down, they think it will stabilize more around 5 hours. It was tougher to kind of assess or really, I pulled up my current timesheet and I said, at this point last week I had 3, I'm in this meeting now, so just for me alone will most likely be slightly over 5 for 2 weeks, but that was not accounting for anything, I know Cameron had to put together the bills list. I wasn't sure where we're at, so I wasn't 100% sure we're necessarily trending towards 5 hours as an overall staff myself, but ultimately the decision to not make any formal ask.
Well, I'd like to see.
To be clear though, I mean, they don't even have any hours.
Yep.
Right? I
the
mean, the
that was
hours
a
have been
discussion
used.
last.
Yeah, I mean, the hours
were exceeded.
Used up months ago.
It's something that I think we need to keep monitoring, because I know there's staff's juggling a lot of different things. So making sure we have enough time allocated to all of our work that needs to be done. So yeah, if we can keep that discussion going with the library board, I'd appreciate that. And we have a joint meeting coming up with them, right?
Yep, on the 20th.
Okay. Any questions on library board? Okay, then we can move on to Deer Grove EMS Commission. Brittany.
All right, I haven't done this one in a while. We met at Deerfield Village Hall. No one came in to speak, approved minutes, financial reports, budget, expenses, no write-offs or hardship waivers. And then Chief went over the staff report. We had a thank you letter from a family. And then we tabled discussing edits to the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, and discussing adding full-time staff until the village of Cottage Grove finishes our due diligence process, because it's all kind of dependent on that. So we tabled that for the next meeting, and then we got a quick look at the 2024 budget. Then moved into closed session. Chief or Cameron, am I forgetting anything? I don't think so. I don't think so.
I believe you did a good
It was like a.
A lot of our healthy discussions would have circled around adding staff earlier and intergovernmental agreement, but again, we're kind of at a standstill waiting for the answer from your board here. So our final budget, which would generally be approved next month, is also contingent upon your decisions. So if there was any way to move it forward, maybe by our next meeting, that'd be great for us. Understanding we have a process and a diligence to it, that you don't want to rush into decisions, but with the decision here affecting our decisions, it's a if-then process.
Questions on Deer Grove EMS?
I think the only thing else that I had noted, I think PAA did the study a couple years ago talking about, well, what would it take to get to 2 full-time ambulances? With the current budget request / to add staff early at the end of this year, we would need 2 more in addition. So there's 2 in the 2024 proposed budget. In order to get to full ambulance, and correct me if I'm wrong, you need 4 total. So 2 and 2.
Just a question, Chief. Will the capital be added in as?
I was saying, yeah, Chief,
yeah.
can you go to the mic? Sarah can't hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sarah,
thanks.
thanks.
Thanks for coming up. The capital purchase that was previously approved, but I feel like a more transparent accounting would be to include that in the overall budget for this year, so everyone can see the increase that everyone will be having.
Yeah, that was a discussion that occurred throughout the development of the draft or preliminary budget, was exactly where, through our accounting practices and the wants of the board, where should that dollar amount go. I did include what that dollar amount was. It will go back into 845, I think it is, as a budget line, to show. And then when we move forward to go not from the budget to potential municipal assessments, we'll make sure that we say that this is the part of the municipal assessment that's for the operating budget, and then this is the portion of the municipal assessment that's for the capital purchase, for those that choose to use that capital purchase through lending or whatever other financial management means they decide for their community.
That is it.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Chief. Then we can move on, unless there's any other questions, to Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee. And we did not meet this time, but Chris, Trustee Stoa, wrote a memo for us to talk about and perhaps send to Parks or talk about here. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, just the village is growing pretty quick, and we got our parks are expanding, and there's a bunch of new trails through the parks, but the current code doesn't allow for dogs and pets in parks. And I just think it's time to maybe revisit that. The Cottage Grove Police Department doesn't really enforce it anyway. So it just seems like to me it'd be a good time to allow pets in parks. We're the only municipality in the area that doesn't allow it, so I just wanted to get the other trustees or Sean or Rick's thoughts on it.
My dog loves the parks in Cottage Grove.
That's the other
I
thing.
didn't say that.
People don't pay attention to the ban right now anyway, so kind of what's the point?
She's on a leash. She likes to play and watch.
I would say that and Sean had pulled up the minutes, the Parks Committee talked about this a few years ago. It's something I brought forward because I had noticed kind of a similar trend. And at the time, they didn't want to make any changes, and they said, we also have a dog park coming in the future, so we can think about what we want to do when that dog park comes. One of the main concerns that one of the committee members raised was if a kid is afraid of a dog, then they're afraid to use the park if there's a dog there. So that was kind of one of the main points. And then also, like, we have dog park coming, so we could just look at the ordinance as a whole at that time. So just to relay, like, some of the previous, and that was that 2021, Sean?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, a couple years ago now. And some of these ordinances, I think, have maybe changed since then, and places, I read Sun Prairie did like
Yeah,
pilot.
Sun Prairie was doing I think right now they allow pets within 10 feet of a path, and they were doing a pilot that's supposed to be ending, I think, this month, to allow, I think, leash dogs in parks. I think looking at like option 3 could take care of the issue of kids being afraid of, because then it allows pets in parks, you just can't go on playgrounds, facilities, or sports courts, fields, etc.
Yeah, and I guess from just legal perspective, I don't know if there is, a legal liability or anything like that. It's more or less just a policy call on the village's position. So, yeah, I know other municipalities allow dogs in parks or on leashes at least. So it's really just a policy call. I don't think there's, and just need an ordinance change basically, which would be pretty straightforward.
When is the dog park set to open?
Hopefully spring of next year.
Okay. And that would need an exemption from the Parks Committee anyway,
Yeah,
I think.
yes.
So it would make sense to me to just change the ordinance and take the dog park into account. Like, I don't know if we want to allow leashed pets in parks with certain restrictions and then just exempt the dog park from the leash requirements. Does anybody have any objections to that? Or other thoughts?
Sarah, I thought you were going to chime in. I just want to get back. Yeah.
Thank you. I totally agree, and will own that I also will, not realizing that the pet dog shouldn't be in the park, have walked our dogs on the path. So I like option 3 of the allowing the leashed pets in the park with certain restrictions. And I think maybe on our next agenda, we could have a discuss and consider a new policy that incorporates option 3 and, to Chris's point, addresses a dog park.
I would say, and maybe Sean, your mic's on, if the Parks Committee, we can just weigh in on it, or also, I mean, our meeting's next week. I'm not sure if it's on.
It's not.
It's not on, okay.
No.
If that's something we can have them talk about in September and then bring back here as part of that report. I don't know if that sounds like a reasonable.
Yeah, could we have like the village attorney drop a ordinance change and then go to the Parks Department for a recommendation and then have it on the
following one?
The following village board meeting?
Yeah, that's doable on my end.
Yeah, so that would be on Parks, September, the 4th Thursday in September. So then our first meeting in October.
Sounds good. If I may, from our standpoint, yeah, we do occasionally see animals in the park, but the one thing that I do see more frequently, not more frequently, but also is them using athletic fields for playing catch. So that's, I mean, not just animals passing through, but people like, sometimes community park is a great spot for that because it's mostly fenced. So I think I'd be looking for enforcement of that for sure, because that's really where we don't want to be stepping in things we shouldn't be stepping in.
Do you want it to be year-round, or is it okay with you if they use it in the winter when people?
Winter's fine, yeah.
Okay, so maybe.
But I do think then that goes against the leash policy, because,
Yeah.
right, I mean, if they're, right, I mean, what I've seen, Sean, is people throwing the ball and the dog's not on the leash, right?
Correct.
In the parks, yeah. So I feel like I agree. I do think we should maintain the leash unless they're in the dog park.
Is there a leash length that we need to?
Oh, that was a debate, maybe right when I first came on the board, or right before or something. I don't know if it was based on, I think it was 10, is it 10 feet, maybe?
10 feet is like a standard non-retractable leash.
Right.
My dog had 7.5 foot.
I guess the question might be, the police department, I don't think they're gonna wanna go out there with a tape measure and check and see somebody's right. So if our point is to have ordinances that are enforceable, I don't know about a leash length or not. I just think a leash, and if somebody wants to stretch it to a 24-foot leash, then I don't know. That feels a
Some
little
of-
extreme, but I don't know.
Some of the other municipalities said, I think they said leash or under voice control. And I guess, I mean, voice control is, they could say that they are, and they, dogs always, they might not be if they see a squirrel or something, but that's one thing other places have done.
Yeah, I would have a little question on enforcement. If it's voice control,
Yeah.
that's just subjective. So if the goal is enforcement, I'd say make it as clear as possible, or just bright line rule.
I'd also recommend that you take in consideration electric leashes, i.e. remote control collars. That is a leash. So.
Okay.
As a owner of a dog who's reactive to other dogs, I'm in favor of keeping it leashed, just because then you see that assurance that the dog's not going to come over to you. You know, maybe they are unretractable and they can still come close to you, but to know that they're not, I think it's a reasonable ask to remain leashed. I don't mind if we don't put a length on it, but I think that's reasonable to.
I say
to
leashed
remain
and controlled, because you could be on a 50-foot leash and then they're not controlled.
Right.
The only other question I would have is, I don't know how much the signs cost in the parks that right now say 2030-2 and 2030-3. Those would need to be replaced. I don't know how much that costs, or if that would be an issue or not.
Not if you say it's not an issue. They're a couple $100 a piece, and we have obviously multiple. Several parks have multiple. Some parks have one. So we can do an inventory and come up with that price.
Okay. Is that enough info?
The other thing I was thinking in relation to the dog park, it'll just be a general ordinance referencing like a policy that we can do, or is there
Yeah, I think we could say, unless like the park is designated as a dog park by director of parks or like the parks committee, so we can basically make that a decision as, like, vest that authority with somebody else, so it doesn't have to be spelled out in ordinance.
perfect, then we can be dynamic in how that's defined, depending on, if we add another dog park in the future or something, we don't have to update the ordinance.
Right, that way it doesn't get forgotten, I guess. So that's probably just an easier way to deal with it.
Okay, thanks. Any other direction for staff on this item? All right, so we'll look for that coming back. Thanks, Chris, for bringing that to us. Then we will move on to item 9, reports from village officers. First up, we have village attorney. So I'll turn over to you, Rick.
I have nothing to report.
Perfect, thank you. Then we'll leave time then for Cameron and Finance Director, update on Community Portal.
Thank you. So the community portal, the phase 1, which is moving over our electronic payments, is scheduled to go live November 1st. What tentatively from a communication plan looks like with the third quarter bills, we plan on sending communication out regarding the change. Subsequently, the month after, for any late bills that we sent out, there'll be an additional communication. There'll be another communication with the tax bill, and then finally with the fourth quarter billing that happens in January, a fourth layer of communication. So really excited about the change. And again, if you remember the memo, utility billing was phase 1 of that plan. Phase 2 of that plan was kind of all all other non-court payments, such as permits and such, and then finally phase 3, court-related payments. So very excited and have some patience with Kristen during that process.
When was the timeline to go to monthly payments?
So that's contingent on PSC approval of the full rate case study. So just a general update on, because I know this board isn't maybe as up to date as the Utility Commission. Wisconsin PSC did accept the simplified rate case study that we submitted, and they are currently in review of the full rate case study. I was told by Trilogy, the consultants, that we should likely get some first round of comments this week or next week. Ideally, we would be, when we send out, or ideally the first quarter next year would be the last quarter under quarterly billing, with April being monthly billing. So that will be a big process, and more communication hopefully to come. But PSC really moves at their pace, unfortunately.
Thanks for those updates. In the new portal, people will still be able to pay by a check, is that?
Yep, they'll be able to do a check. So they can still mail in a check. They can still sign up for automatic payment. I think where we're going to have the biggest communication issue or kind of thing that staff are looking to make as easy on residents as possible are people who are signed up for automatic billing. That's not going to transfer over. So getting that out there, getting the communication, getting people signed up for e-billing. Part of our sustainability effort is to get people signed up, since we don't have a convenience or credit card fee for paying online, is to go kind of quote unquote paperless and get as many people as possible to utilize that process.
Great, I appreciate that. And yeah, more people know about it now through the communications that aren't using it now, so.
Yep, we're hopefully up to 65% by the end of the push.
Okay, thanks for all the work on that, and utilities also. Any other questions for Cameron? Okay. Then item 10, communications and miscellaneous business. First up, we have consider approval of vouchers. Any questions, or this is a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Then correspondence. I did not have any. Anyone else with correspondence? Okay, upcoming community events. Wheels Park is open, which is very exciting. There were a bunch of people of various ages enjoying it today, so when I drove by, which is great. We do have back to school. September 1st is the first day of school, so reminding all drivers to drive extra careful as everyone's trying to navigate to the first day of school. Other community events?
Do we have a good amount of crossing guards?
No, we don't. We have crossing guards in the locations that were outlined in the policy. So we'll have crossing guards moving to Wellbridge, Maine, and Taylor. But we have not had any new applicants.
I'm trying to get my dad. He's retired, but he lives in Wanakee, so.
All right, we'll need a crossing guard recruiting day community event. We'll think about that. All right, future agenda items. We'll have a whole list of things since our Labor Day meeting is being pushed. We'll just have one September meeting, so I guess make sure you eat dinner before you come.
Thanks.
Just Aaron and my annual development presentation alone will probably take an hour or two.
Yeah.
Just to highlight, the approval of the FMP is on that one, so that's going to be a pretty lengthy one, as well as Stafford and Ellers. Our vendor reviews are scheduled for that week.
It's a high caffeinated meeting.
Yes. All right, so we'll plan accordingly. We do have the Village Board, Library Board joint meeting ahead of that, though, right?
Yes.
Or
September 20th.
2 days after, okay.
Tuesday.
All right, busy week. All right, any other agenda items from anyone? All right, hearing none, then I would make a motion to go into closed session. This closed session is regarding a potential land acquisition in TID number 9 and establishing a negotiating position. The Village of Cottage Grove Village Board will enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Do I have a second?
Second.